The courtroom was packed, every seat filled, people standing along the back wall. The air smelled of old leather and tension. Ava Whitmore sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded on top of a thin brown envelope. She wore a simple navy dress, no jewelry, no makeup brighter than a muted rose. Her hair was pulled back the way her mother used to wear it for church. Across the aisle, Damien Whitmore adjusted his cufflinks, the way he always did before photographers arrived. He wore charcoal. He wore confidence. His new associate, Sabrina Cole, sat 3 rows back in a silk blouse the color of champagne. She crossed her legs slowly, watching the judge's empty chair. The bailiff announced Judge Eleanor Hayes. The room stood. Judge Hayes walked to her bench without hurry. She placed a single yellow folder in front of her. Then she sat. Then she looked at Damien. Then she looked at Ava. Then she nodded for the hearing to begin. Damien's lawyer stood first. Victor Langston was a clean, careful man in a dark suit. He placed a single document on the table between husband and wife. A $1 bill, crisp and new, sat on top of the divorce settlement. "Your Honor," Victor said, "my client has offered this final settlement in good faith. $1. No spousal support. No continuation of company benefits. No claim to any marital assets accumulated during the 12 years of this marriage. The divorce will be granted on these terms." The room exhaled. Ava did not move. Damien stood slowly. He picked up the dollar bill. He held it between 2 fingers like a postcard. He looked at Ava. He smiled the way men smile when they believe they have won something. "You're worth exactly $1 to me," he said. His voice carried across the courtroom with the practiced calm of a man who had delivered boardroom presentations for a decade. The gallery gasped. Someone whispered. Someone else covered her mouth. Sabrina tilted her chin up just slightly, watching Ava for the reaction she expected. Tears. Maybe a small cry. Maybe nothing, which would have been worse. Ava looked at the dollar bill. She looked at Damien. Her eyes never wavered. She did not blink. She did not swallow. She reached into her bag and pulled out a black pen. She signed the line at the bottom of the settlement. She signed it again where the notary required. She placed the dollar bill back on the table. She set her pen beside it. She folded her hands again. Damien turned toward the gallery, half smiling, half bowing, the gesture of a man expecting applause. That was when Judge Eleanor Hayes spoke. "Mr. Whitmore." The room froze. Damien turned back to the bench. Or should I say, Mr. Employee? Nobody moved. Damien's smile disappeared. Ava remained perfectly still. Sabrina's glass of water slipped an inch from her hand. Victor Langston opened his mouth and forgot what he had planned to say. Judge Hayes opened the yellow folder. "Before I sign this judgment," the judge said, "I need to review one document from the court archive, a document I have been waiting nearly 7 years to read in open court." And then the screen went dark. 7 years earlier, a coffee shop on Halsted Street in Chicago. The tables were too small for the kind of conversation that changes a life. Ava Bridges was 27. She had a master's degree in business, a part-time job as a substitute teacher, and a notebook filled with a business plan she had rewritten 11 times. Damien Cross, not yet Whitmore, was 29. He had a borrowed car, a 1-bedroom apartment behind a laundromat, and a smile that made waitresses forget their orders. They met because Ava's cousin dragged her along to a friend of a friend gathering. Damien told a story about wanting to build a data software company for small businesses. Ava, without raising her voice, asked him 3 questions Damien could not answer. She wrote them down on a napkin and slid it across the table. Damien stared at the napkin for a long time. "You should call me," he said. She didn't. He called her. 3 weeks later, they sat in that same coffee shop and laid out a plan they called Whitmore and Bridges Solutions. They did not have money for a name printed on a door, so they put it on a t-shirt. Ava ironed onto her mother's ironing board at midnight. Damien laughed until his stomach hurt. "We'll need clients," he said. "I already have a list," Ava said. She slid 17 names across the table. Each name had a phone number. Each phone number had been collected from her years teaching small business seminars at the community college. Damien looked at the list for a long time. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "I was listening," she said. That was the beginning of everything. The first year was a kind of beautiful destruction. Ava worked 2 jobs. She taught during the day. She ran the fledgling company at night. She answered the phones, built the marketing plan, designed the first website in a free online editor. She cooked dinner for Damien's late strategy sessions with 3 other friends who later became the founding team. She corrected his deck slides silently before every meeting, never mentioning it, never taking credit. Damien was the face. He was the voice. He was the man the news cameras followed when the small company won its first regional contract. He was the man who smiled in the magazine when the local business journal called him a rising star in Chicago's tech scene. Ava read those articles in the break room of the school where she still taught. She never mentioned them at home. She simply went back to work. When the company almost went bankrupt in its 2nd year because of a contract dispute over a Chicago distribution client, Ava sold her grandmother's gold bracelet. She sold the ring her mother had given her when she graduated. She took a personal loan against her own name, not the company's, not Damien's. She put her name on the line as guarantor. She did it without telling Damien the full cost to her family. Damien was at an award ceremony the night she signed the documents, alone in the office. He had left her a voice message while she was closing the deal. "Happy birthday, baby. Wish you were here. They love us." She didn't cry. She signed the documents. Then she went home, made tea, slept 4 hours. A year later, the company turned profitable. Ava created the financial system that kept it profitable. She designed the pricing model. She drafted the first employee handbook. She hired the first intern, then the 2nd, then the 5th. She built the machine, while Damien stood in front of the machine at every ribbon cutting. When he filed for a trademark in 2009, he used his own name, Whitmore, for the brand. Ava had suggested it years earlier, around a kitchen table when nobody was watching. He had laughed. He had taken her idea. He had put his name on it. She didn't say a word at the trademark ceremony. Then he proposed one Saturday morning in their kitchen. He had a ring. It was the same kind she had once mentioned admiring in a magazine, with 3 small stones. He slid it onto her finger. Ava said yes, because she believed in the partnership more than she believed in herself. They married in a small ceremony in her parents' backyard. 40 people. No band. Cake. Damien cried during the vows. Ava did not. She squeezed his hand and whispered, "We'll build something real." And they did. In the years that followed, Whitmore Solutions grew from a small Chicago loft into a regional firm, then a national firm, then the kind of firm that flew Damien and his executives to conferences in Los Angeles, in Miami, in Seattle. There were photos in the lobby of their building, all of them newest first. And in every single photo, Damien smiled alone. Ava's photo was not in the lobby. When journalists asked Damien about the origin story, he said, "I had a vision. I built something out of nothing." He never mentioned the napkin. He never mentioned the list of 17 clients. He never mentioned the gold bracelet, the personal loan, the nights she had slept 4 hours so that he could sleep 8. Ava read those interviews at breakfast. She poured his coffee. She kissed him on the cheek. She went to the office and worked. Then came Sabrina. Sabrina Cole had been hired as Damien's executive assistant in 2019. She was 26. She was meticulous. She was elegant. She scheduled his flights. She booked his hotel suites. She carried his coffee. She laughed at his jokes before anyone else did. She looked at him with the bright, fixed attention of a woman who had decided, for reasons of her own, that this man was the only man who mattered. Damien began staying late at the office. Ava noticed the way you notice rain. She did not raise her voice. She asked one question. "Is everything okay?" Damien smiled. "Business," he said. Ava nodded. She went back to work. Sabrina brought Damien his coffee. Damien began going to networking events without Ava. He said the optics were better. Ava was older, he said. The industry preferred a younger woman at certain events. Ava felt the sentence enter her body like a slow needle. She did not remove it. Damien stopped coming home for dinner. Ava cooked. She ate alone. She went upstairs. She read. She checked on her parents by phone. She listened to the silence of a house that was once full. When he filed for divorce, he did it on a Tuesday morning. The papers arrived by courier. Ava opened the door. She signed for the envelope. She walked back into the kitchen. She read every page. She did not call him. He called her that afternoon. "I'm filing," he said. "I know," she said. "I want a clean break," he said. "I understand," she said. "You're not going to fight me on this, are you?" he asked. "No," she said. He was quiet for a moment. He had expected an argument. He had prepared one. He didn't need it. "Good," he said. "Goodbye, Ava." "Goodbye, Damien." She hung up the phone. She sat at the kitchen table for a long time. She noticed the 3 small stones on her ring still caught the light from the window above the sink. She left the ring where it was. She called Victor Langston. Victor Langston's office was on the 15th floor of a downtown building with a brass plaque that read, "Langston, Carpenter, and Howe." Victor was a thin man with soft hands and a calm voice. He had handled corporate dissolution, asset splits, hostile takeovers. He had never met Ava before. He had been recommended by a friend of a friend who said, "She's going to need the cleanest, most honest attorney in the city." Victor's first question was, "What did you sign when the company almost went bankrupt?" Ava told him the truth. Victor stared at her for a long time. "I need to find the original documents," he said. "They're in a safety deposit box at the bank on Wabash," Ava said. "How long has it been?" he asked. "Almost 7 years," she said. Victor nodded. He did not say what he was thinking. He spent the next 6 weeks quietly pulling records from the Illinois Secretary of State, from the Cook County Recorder, from the original law firm that had drafted the emergency restructuring. He did not call Damien's lawyers. He did not file motions. He did not warn anyone. He simply read. The documents told a story Ava had never fully understood until that moment. 7 years earlier, when the company had nearly collapsed, Ava had personally guaranteed the company debt. She had signed a personal guarantee that put her house, her car, her savings, and her future earnings at risk. She had signed it because the bank would not lend the company working capital in any other form. The lenders would not accept Damien's signature alone. He had no personal equity to risk. Ava did. She used everything she had. In exchange for her personal guarantee, the lenders required an emergency restructuring of the company. The restructuring agreement transferred majority voting control and majority equity ownership to the individual who held the personal guarantee. That individual was Ava. Damien, as the public CEO, retained executive authority. He signed presentations, he spoke to investors, he hired and fired, he made the company famous. But on paper, on the binding paper, he was a senior executive with operational control, not a majority owner. Damien had signed those documents in the back office of the law firm on a Friday night. He had not read them. He had trusted that Ava would handle the details. He had signed where she had placed a small yellow sticky note that said, "Sign here." He hadn't even looked at the second page. He had no idea what he had given away, and Ava had no idea what she had been given. She had simply been trying to save the company. For 7 years, while the company grew, while the magazines praised Damien, while the board cheered him, while Sabrina brought him coffee, Ava had unknowingly held the true ownership of the company in her hands. She had never used it. She had never mentioned it. She had never weaponized it. She had signed paychecks. She had approved budgets. She had hired staff. She had built the systems that had made the company what it was. But the documents had not been about control. They had been about survival. And survival has a memory. Victor found all of this out 6 weeks before the hearing. He called Ava on a Thursday evening. "We need to talk," he said. They met the next morning. Victor spread the documents across a table in his conference room. He pointed to a notarized signature. He pointed to a date. He pointed to a clause called the Majority Guarantee Clause, buried on page 14 of the original restructuring agreement. "Do you understand what this says?" he asked. Ava read it twice. Her hand went to her mouth. "I didn't know," she whispered. "Damien didn't know either," Victor said. "What do I do?" Ava asked. Victor was quiet for a long time. "You do whatever your conscience tells you," he said. "I am only your attorney. I am not your moral compass." Ava nodded. She folded the documents carefully. She did not call Damien. She did not call Sabrina. She did not call the board. She called Judge Eleanor Hayes. Judge Hayes had been a family court judge for 19 years. She had known what the documents meant for 7 years, because in a quiet moment back then, she had personally requested a copy of the original restructuring file from the Cook County Archives. She had read them. She had locked them into her memory. She had not spoken about them. She had waited because she believed that truth has its own timing. When Ava called her, Judge Hayes listened for a long time. "Are you prepared for what this will do?" she asked. "I am," Ava said. "Are you prepared for it to break the man you love?" the judge asked. "I am," she said. "If it breaks him silently, it is smaller than if it breaks him publicly later. He deserves to know." Judge Hayes was quiet. Then she said, "Bring the documents to court. Bring Victor. Bring the file from the safety deposit box. Bring an accountant. I will give you 90 minutes at the bench. I will read what I think the law requires me to read. I will read it in open court. I will let the record show." "Thank you, Your Honor," Ava said. "Thank you," Judge Hayes said. You've been waiting a long time, too. The hearing was scheduled for the following month. Then came the offer. Damien's lawyers offered Ava $1 and silence. Victor warned Ava not to accept. Ava accepted. She signed the papers. The hearing was postponed by 90 days. Ava did not call to stop it. She signed because she wanted Damien to believe he had won. She wanted him to feel safe. She wanted the courtroom to be filled with his arrogance and his supporters when the truth came out. She wanted the moment to be undeniable. She wanted the truth to have witnesses. Those 90 days were the longest of her life. Sabrina moved into Damien's apartment on a Wednesday. She brought a small silver tray for serving Damien coffee. She moved her toothbrush into the bathroom next to his. She moved her breathing into the same air. Damien smiled for the first time in months. A few days before the hearing, Sabrina attended a small dinner with 4 board members at a steakhouse downtown. She wore a black dress and a thin gold chain with a small D charm. She touched his shoulder when she leaned forward to refill his glass. She did not, however, look at the original restructuring documents. Nobody did. The morning of the hearing, Ava woke at 4. She made coffee. She ironed the navy dress. She put on the simple pearl studs her mother had given her. She watched the sunrise over the rooftops of Chicago. She said a quiet prayer. She did not pray for revenge. She prayed for clarity. She drove to court early. She sat alone in the gallery until the bailiff opened the doors. Then the courtroom was filled. Then the hearing began. Then the dollar bill was placed in front of her. Then Damien said the words. Then Ava signed. Then Judge Eleanor Hayes spoke. "Mr. Whitmore," Judge Hayes said again. The yellow folder was open. The page was flipped to a notarized document dated 7 years earlier. The date matched the date Ava had sold her grandmother's bracelet. The date matched the date the company had almost died. "Or should I say," Judge Hayes continued, "Mr. Employee?" The room went silent. Damien's face, which had been confident a moment ago, became small. "Your Honor," Victor Langston stood. "I would like the record to reflect that the plaintiff has just signed a settlement offer that the plaintiff does not intend to honor without further court review." "On what grounds?" Judge Hayes asked. "On the grounds that the plaintiff is the majority legal owner of Whitmore Solutions, the company the defendant has publicly claimed to own since the day it was founded." Sabrina stood. "Your Honor, that is impossible." "Please be seated, Ms. Cole," the judge said. "You are not a party to this matter, and your commentary is not invited." Sabrina sat. "Mr. Langston," Judge Hayes said, "present the document." Victor stood. He placed a notarized document in front of Judge Hayes. Judge Hayes read it. The room waited. She turned to a second page. She read the majority guarantee clause aloud. She read the personal guarantee clause. She read the section on transfer of majority voting control in exchange for personal liability. She read the notarized signatures. She read Ava's signature. She read Damien's. Damien's face lost its color. Sabrina stared at Ava. Ava did not move. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She simply sat. She watched the room learn what she had known for 90 days. Victor returned to the plaintiff's table. He placed another document in front of Judge Hayes. This one was the corporate resolution from the board meeting at which Damien had been confirmed as CEO. The resolution confirmed his executive role. It did not confirm his ownership. The ownership clause referred back to the original restructuring agreement. Nobody had checked this. For 7 years. Nobody. Judge Hayes looked at Damien. "Did you read the documents you signed back then?" she asked. "I signed where my wife told me to sign," Damien said. "Did you read the clauses?" the judge asked. "I trusted my wife." "And your wife trusted the law." Damien did not answer. "Your Honor," Sabrina said, half standing, "this man is the face of this company. He has been the face for 7 years. The board has confirmed his leadership multiple times. He has signed deals, loans, contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You cannot simply remove him because of a clause he didn't know about." Judge Hayes looked at Sabrina. "Ms. Cole," she said, "passion is not the law. The law is the document. The document is signed. The signatures are notarized. The signatures are valid. The signatures are over 7 years old and have never been challenged. They are enforceable today." She turned back to Damien. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, "you are not the majority owner of this company. You have not been the majority owner since the day you signed that restructuring in a back office on a Friday night. The majority owner of this company is Ava Whitmore. She has held that majority interest without using it, without weaponizing it, without disclosing it, for the better part of a decade. The court records will reflect that." The gallery exploded in whispers. A few people smiled. A few people cried. Damien stood. His chair scraped the floor. He did not look at Ava. He looked at Sabrina. Sabrina looked at the floor. Then she looked at her own hands. Victor placed a third document on the bench. This was the formal legal claim by Ava Whitmore to remove the defendant as Chief Executive Officer of Whitmore Solutions, based on documented misconduct, public humiliation, fiduciary self-dealing, and breach of the original personal guarantee clause that gave her the authority to appoint or remove senior executives in the event of marital dissolution. The judge read it silently. She stamped it. She signed it. She handed it back. The court orders the removal of Damien Whitmore as Chief Executive Officer of Whitmore Solutions, effective immediately. All corporate authorities are revoked. All financial controls are transferred to the plaintiff, Ava Whitmore. The court further orders an independent audit to determine whether any past actions of the defendant may have constituted breach of fiduciary duty. Damien opened his mouth and closed it. Sabrina slowly stood. She looked at Ava. She nodded once. She walked out of the courtroom. Damien looked at Ava. He did not ask her to drop the charges. He did not beg. He simply said, in a voice almost inaudible, "How?" Ava looked at him for the first time since the dollar bill. She did not smile. She did not frown. She said, "I was the one who signed for you when no one else would. I was the one who signed my grandmother's bracelet onto a banker's desk so the company could borrow enough money to make payroll. I did it because I loved you. I did it because I believed you would remember. You didn't. So today, the document I signed for love is the document that comes back to ask you to be honest." Damien closed his eyes. "You could have used this earlier," he said. "Yes," Ava said. "I could have. But I wanted you to become the man you said you were. I waited 7 years. I gave you 7 years. I gave you Sabrina. I gave you the magazine covers. I gave you the awards. I gave you the photos in the lobby that had only your face. I wanted you to remember one day who gave you all of that. You never did. So today, the truth has to. Damien looked at the floor. He whispered, "I'm sorry." "I am not taking anything from you," Ava said. "I am taking back what was always mine." She looked at Judge Hayes. "Your Honor," Ava said, "the plaintiff rests." Judge Hayes closed the folder. She closed the file. She looked at Ava. She looked at Damien. "This court is adjourned," she said. She stood. She did not say another word. She walked out of the courtroom. Outside, a few reporters waited. Ava walked past them without speaking. Victor walked beside her. They got into a car. They drove to the company headquarters. There was a long elevator ride. There was a quiet lobby. There was an empty boardroom. Ava sat at the head of the table. She signed 3 letters: the formal acceptance of the CEO role, the formal removal of the previous CEO, and the formal instruction to begin an independent audit of all executive conduct over the previous 7 years. She signed them quietly. She signed them alone. The board arrived one by one. They did not clap. They did not cheer. They watched her with the cautious, respectful attention of people who had just learned that the woman they had been ignoring for a decade had been the one holding the keys to every door they walked through. Ava looked at the board. She introduced herself as if they were meeting for the first time. They nodded. She did not make a speech. She did not punish anyone. She simply asked one question. How can we serve the customers of this company better tomorrow than we did yesterday? They began the meeting. Sabrina Cole did not appear at the office that week. A short statement was released. She was leaving the company. She thanked the team. She asked for privacy. She did not blame anyone by name. The audit began. A few mid-level executives were let go, with severance, with dignity, with letters of recommendation. They had not been the cause. Ava wanted them treated as people, not as inventory. A press release was issued. It was careful. It was respectful. It said simply that the leadership of the company would be transitioned. The stock price held steady. Customers stayed. Investors stayed. Employees stayed. They stayed because they finally understood who had been running the company all along. Months passed. A leadership event was held one autumn evening in a hotel ballroom downtown. Ava wore a deep green dress. She wore the simple pearl studs her mother had given her. She did not wear anything else. She did not need to. The ballroom was full. The mayor was there. Several senators were there. Former clients were there. Employees and their families were there. Judge Eleanor Hayes was there. Ava walked to the podium. She did not give a victory speech. She gave a thank you speech. She thanked her team. She thanked her parents. She thanked her grandmother, whose bracelet had been the price of keeping the company alive. She thanked the legal counsel who had helped her find her own strength. She thanked the judge. Judge Hayes stood near the side of the room. She watched Ava with the quiet, satisfied attention of a woman who had waited 7 years for a truth to arrive at its rightful moment. After the speeches, Ava and Judge Hayes met at a small table near the back of the room. "Congratulations, Ms. Whitmore," Judge Hayes said. "Thank you, Your Honor," Ava said. "You did it with dignity," the judge said. "I learned that from the courtroom," Ava said. "No," the judge said, smiling slightly. "You learned that long before the courtroom. The courtroom simply allowed you to show it." Ava smiled. "May I have one more piece of advice from an old judge?" she asked. Please, Judge Hayes said. Judge Hayes looked at Ava for a long moment. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small again, she said, including yourself. Ava nodded. She did not cry. She did not laugh. She simply nodded. She walked back to the podium. She walked off the stage. She walked into the autumn night. The air was clean. The city was silent. The lights of the city looked like 1,000 small candles set out for every person who had ever been the quiet foundation of someone else's loud success. Ava drove home. She ate dinner by herself. She slept. For the first time in 7 years, she slept without dreaming of the courtroom. The next morning, she went back to the office. She walked into a building that had been hers all along. The elevator doors opened. The lobby stood. Her team was waiting. She bowed her head, in the old way her father used to bow when he entered a room that deserved respect. And the room stood for her, as it always should have. The truth had waited 7 years. It had waited through a dollar bill. It had waited through every magazine cover that had only one face. It had waited through every boardroom speech that had only one voice. It had waited through every quiet sacrifice that nobody had ever thanked. But the truth always finds its moment. And when it does not need to shout. It only needs the room to be quiet enough to hear. Ava walked to her office. She opened the door. She sat at her desk. She looked out at the city. She whispered, "We finally made it, Mom." The dollar bill was framed in a quiet glass box on her bookshelf. She kept it not as revenge. She kept it as a reminder. A reminder that dignity is worth more than revenge. A reminder that the quiet partner is the true foundation of everything. A reminder that the loudest voice in the room is not always the right voice. A reminder that truth has its own clock. A reminder that respect, once earned by patience, is never truly lost. She closed her office door. She made a phone call. She made another coffee. She went back to work. For the first time in her life, she worked for herself. And the city outside kept moving. It always does.